Jaime Carter was a joyful 5-year-old, bright-eyed, full of energy, and bursting with excitement after his very first week of kindergarten. Every day he'd bound into the house, eager to share every detail with his parents. He talked endlessly about new friends like Sophia and Aiden, colorful building blocks shaped like castles, and the big red slide on the playground that made his belly flutter. His laugh filled every corner of the house, echoing like a bell of pure childhood happiness. But one afternoon, something changed. Jaime came through the door slowly, dragging his feet, his head bowed low. His small hands gripped the straps of his backpack with such intensity it was as if he were clinging to something invisible, some burden he couldn't express. Lisa, his mother, paused mid-task in the kitchen and turned toward him. Her heart dropped. The sparkle in her son's eyes had vanished. "Hey, baby," she greeted softly, walking toward him. But Jaime didn't answer. He didn't run up to her with a hug. He didn't talk about his day. He didn't even take off his shoes. Instead, he just stood there, his shoulders stiff and tense. When Lisa gently crouched to help him out of his shoes, that's when she saw it. Faint red marks wrapped around his wrist. Thin, slightly swollen lines, almost like fingerprints. "Baby, what happened to your arm?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Jaime quickly pulled his hand away and turned his face. "Nothing," he murmured. Lisa didn't press him, but something in her mother's instinct screamed louder than any words could. That night at dinner, the quiet was deafening. Jaime barely touched his spaghetti, his favorite. He sat motionless, occasionally nudging food with his fork, but never lifting it to his mouth. Normally, he couldn't stop talking about dinosaurs, singing songs from class, or how he made a tower taller than himself with blocks. But now, nothing. Marcus, Jaime's father, tried to keep things light. "Hey, buddy," he said gently, "what happened at school today? You seem a little off." Jaime's eyes remained glued to his plate. Then, in the smallest voice barely audible, he whispered, "The nurse hurt me." Everything stopped. Lisa dropped her fork. Marcus's smile faded instantly. Their eyes met across the table, both stunned. Their bubbly little boy, who just days ago had been thrilled about his new school, now sat in front of them, shaken, quiet, afraid. Lisa didn't waste time. She stood up and walked straight to the kitchen phone. She called the school, her hands trembling as she punched in the number. The principal, Mrs. Whitmore, picked up with a rehearsed calm. "Mrs. Carter," she said smoothly, "Jaime probably scraped himself during recess. The nurse just cleaned him up. Kids sometimes misinterpret things when they're scared of getting cleaned." But Lisa wasn't convinced. There was no mention of a scrape on Jaime's knee, just marks on his wrist. And that night, her worst fears were confirmed. At around 2 a.m., a blood-curdling scream tore through the house. Lisa and Marcus bolted from their bed. They found Jaime sitting up in bed, drenched in sweat, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Don't let her touch me," he screamed, trembling in terror. Lisa rushed to hold him. Marcus wrapped his arms around both of them. There was no denying it now. This wasn't about a scraped knee. This was trauma, real fear. Something terrible had happened. The next morning, determined to get answers, Lisa and Marcus marched into Pinterest Elementary. Jaime clutched both their hands so tightly his knuckles turned white. The familiar scent of crayons and floor cleaner now felt sterile and hostile. Lisa marched up to the front desk. "We need to see the nurse, now." The secretary blinked, clearly caught off guard. Before she could respond, a firm voice interjected from behind. A tall woman in a pristine white uniform. Nurse Darnell. She carried herself with practiced authority. Her eyes were sharp, her smile thin and hollow. "Is something wrong?" she asked. The moment Jaime saw her, he ducked behind his father's legs, trembling again. Lisa stared at her. "He came home with marks on his wrist. He said you hurt him." Nurse Darnell kept her tone calm. "He tripped on the playground," she said. "I cleaned his knee. Some kids just don't like antiseptic. They overreact." But Jaime's reaction didn't seem like an overreaction. It felt like fear. Deep, lasting fear. As the family turned to leave, a quiet voice called out, "Mrs. Carter?" Lisa turned. It was a teacher, Miss Green, one of the few black staff members at the school. She glanced around nervously before stepping closer. "I've seen her be rough with the kids," she whispered, "especially the black and brown ones. We've reported her. But nothing ever happens." Lisa's stomach twisted. So it wasn't just Jaime. This wasn't an isolated case. It was part of a pattern the school had been ignoring. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, diving deep into forums and community threads. Eventually, she found it. 2 old posts from other black parents. Both described eerily similar situations. Children who came home frightened. Children who said the nurse had hurt them. And both families claimed the school dismissed their concerns. One parent said they were told their son imagined it. Another said the school refused to show them the security footage. Lisa's hands trembled as she read. Her heart sank. The more she uncovered, the more it became clear this wasn't just about her son. This was about something much bigger. The next day, while Marcus was dropping something off at the school, an older janitor named Mr. Thompson approached him in the hallway. The man looked around nervously before slipping something into Marcus's palm, a small USB drive. "You didn't get this from me," he said quietly, "but you need to see what's on it. Be careful." Marcus hurried home. Lisa met him at the door, and they plugged the drive into their computer. The screen flickered to life, showing black and white footage from the hallway in the nurse's office. But the moment Jaime entered the room, the footage glitched, then cut. The video resumed only after Jaime had left. Lisa stared at the screen in disbelief. "It's gone," she whispered. "They deleted it." The evidence was being erased, the truth buried, their little boy's pain denied. Meanwhile, Jaime's condition worsened. He refused to sleep in his bed. He clung to Lisa's arm during the day. He started drawing disturbing pictures, figures with menacing grins and long, sharp objects, needles. One night, as Lisa tucked him in, Jaime whispered with tears in his eyes, "She's going to get me again." Lisa wrapped her arms around him and kissed his forehead. But as she held him close, something changed in her. A fire began to burn inside her chest. Not just a mother's fear, but a mother's resolve. They weren't just fighting for Jaime anymore. They were about to uncover a truth the school had tried desperately to hide. And they wouldn't stop. Not until every voice that had been silenced finally got heard. Fueled by desperation and love, Lisa picked up her phone and called a local journalist. She explained everything: the red marks, the deleted footage, the disturbing drawings. The reporter listened, and when Lisa mentioned the other complaints from black families, the tone on the other end shifted. "This is serious," The journalist said, "I want to help." The next morning, the headline exploded across local news. Parents accuse school nurse of targeting Black and Latino children. The story spread like wildfire. Lisa's phone buzzed nonstop. Other parents called, Black, Latino, even some white, sharing their stories. "My daughter came home crying last year. They told me my son was lying too. We complained, but nothing happened." By the end of the week, a protest had formed outside Pinehurst Elementary. Dozens of parents stood together holding signs, "Protect our children" and "Fire Nurse Darnell now." Cameras rolled as chants echoed through the streets. But inside the school, Principal Whitmore stood at her window, still silent, still hiding. Then a former teacher from another district reached out. She revealed something shocking. Nurse Darnell had been forced to resign from her previous school after a similar incident involving a Black girl. But instead of reporting her, the school let her walk away quietly. No investigation, no paper trail. Lisa and Marcus were stunned. This wasn't just a failure, it was a cover-up. And still, the school didn't take responsibility. Instead, they summoned Lisa and Marcus to a meeting and threatened to suspend Jaime for disruptive behavior. That was the final straw. Lisa and Marcus took legal action. They filed a lawsuit against the school district. The media picked up the story. Reporters lined the courthouse. Public pressure grew. And finally, the school was forced to release the full, unedited security footage. The video confirmed their worst fears. There was Jaime, small, scared, sitting in the nurse's office. Nurse Darnell stood over him, her face twisted with anger. She grabbed his wrist hard enough to leave those red marks. When he tried to pull away, she yanked him back. Lisa had to look away. Her baby's face was etched with terror. At an emergency school board meeting, the room was packed. Angry parents, flashing cameras. Under immense pressure, the board announced, "Nurse Darnell's employment has been terminated." The room erupted, but many parents shouted, "That's not enough." Because it wasn't. There were no criminal charges. The apology letter from the school was cold and vague, full of words like regret and misunderstanding. No one else was held accountable. The principal kept her job. The system moved on. The Carters won the lawsuit. They used the money to send Jaime to a safer school across town. But the scars remained. On his first day, he clung to Lisa and asked, "Will the nurse here be nice?" That night he asked, "Do white kids get hurt by nurses too?" Lisa held him close and whispered, "Sometimes adults make bad choices, but we fought to protect you, and we'll keep fighting, always." Still, she knew Jaime's innocence had been taken. Nurse Darnell was gone, but the system that protected her still existed. Other children, Black, brown, unseen, remained vulnerable. That night, as Lisa looked out the window, she made herself a promise. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. They had sparked something powerful, and they wouldn't stop until every child could walk into school feeling safe, no matter the color of their skin. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below to tell us where you're watching from. Together, we raise our voices for justice.